Hi, I'm Beth Summers from the Wilton Test Kitchen, and I want to show you how easy it is to cover a round cake with rolled fondant. I have my round cake all set up here, ready to go. It's on a 10-inch cake board, and I have an 8-inch round cake, so you want to put it on a base that's at least 2 inches larger than your cake. And as you can see, it's very level all the way around. That's the first thing you need to know, because then we can ice it very nice and level. So I have buttercream icing here at a thin consistency, which is the perfect consistency for icing a cake. And you're going to spread it onto the cake just like you would if you were just icing it normally, leaving it as a buttercream iced cake. You want to make sure that you get it as even as you can. It doesn't have to be perfect at this point, but as even as you can, because the more even it is, the more even your fondant will be over it. So I'm using my angled spatula here and making sure my top is nice and flat. And I have a normal coating of icing here, a normal amount. So if you prefer a 1/4 inch or 1/2 inch, that's what you should do. Okay, so that looks good because it's nice and flat. Now I'm just going to move to my sides. Once you have your cake iced, the next thing to do is measure the top and the sides, because that's how you're going to figure out how large of a piece of fondant you need to roll. Measure the height of the cake, multiply that by 2, and then add the diameter. My cake is just about 4.5 inches tall and 8 inches across. So that's how I know how big I need to get. Now, you're going to take your fondant out. And begin to knead it. You need to knead it until it's pliable before you start rolling. And the new Decorator Preferred fondant is much softer, so it actually goes very quickly. That's really all I need to do. I have my 20-inch roller, and I'm going to simply roll it out. Most projects will tell you to roll to about 1/8 of an inch thickness. And I'm using my roll and cut mat here, as you can see. If you were just doing this straight on the countertop, you might want to put some cornstarch or confectioner's sugar underneath the fondant to prevent it from sticking. You can also, if you like, pick it up and move it like I'm doing once in a while so that it doesn't stick. It's kind of like pie dough like that. You want to make sure that you're always rolling from the center outwards and never fully over the edge of the fondant so that it remains consistent all the way across. And again, we're going for 1/8 of an inch thickness. It's better to start with a circle because it's easier to finish with a circle. If you start with something that's really misshapen, it's harder to get it there. Now I'm just going to cut the fondant to the size that I need. 8 inches by 4.5 inches, I'm going to need about a 17-inch circle. After you get your fondant cut to the size that you need, rolled out and cut, you're going to want to make sure that your cake is ready before that, because the fondant will go on right away. You can't let it sit out too long or it starts to dry out. So what I've done is I've just loosely folded the fondant over my rolling pin once, just like that. And what I'm going to do is start it about 1 inch away from me so the fondant in the back is touching the base, and gently roll my rolling pin out like that, so the fondant will drape all the way over the cake. Now you can see it's draping nicely and it's covering completely. And from here, we're going to use a combination of our hands and the fondant smoother tool to gently adhere the fondant to the icing underneath. And then start pulling the fondant away from the cake as you use your hand to slide down it to get rid of any creases. So always pulling down, away and down from the cake as I go, so that the creases actually come past the edge of the cake so that they're on the cake board itself as opposed to on the side of the cake. That's the trick, just to continue pulling and smoothing down. And this fondant is really stretchy. The Decorator Preferred fondant works really nicely. It also drapes really nicely over the cake, so it's very, very easy to do this cover. Rotate the cake as you go so that you're always able to see the part that you're working on. And just going all the way around, pulling it out and smoothing it down. Don't worry if you have a few little lumps. We're going to go back with the smoother at the end after everything is adhered So I've gotten almost all the way around, and here a lot of people have problems. This is the tricky bit. It's adhered on both sides, and then there's this flap. It's okay, just pull it out one more time. You're gonna loosen it a little bit on either side there from where it was attached, and just pull it again a little bit more so that all of that draping comes to the bottom of the cake and then over onto the cake board itself. See, there's a pleat here, but there's nothing here. So what now we want to do is take our smoother and go all along the top and the sides to get a nice clean finish. And you're going to go all the way to the cake board here to create a nice, tight, adhered fondant. If you get any bubbles in your fondant, you can use a pin to insert a pin at an angle very gently to release the air and then just smooth back over it. That'll happen once in a while. And then I'm going to use my fondant trimmer here to very carefully go around the cake. I have one little seam there, so I'm just going to go back and re-smooth it out, get rid of it. A little bit of a perfectionist. And cut away the excess fondant as close as you can to where the cake meets the board. Again, making sure to turn the cake as you do this so that you can always see where you're cutting. And I like to do it in smaller portions rather than go all the way around in one big strip, because sometimes the fondant might stretch. You don't want that to happen. So tiny little strips is my preference. And there we go. So we have all the extra fondant off of the cake, and just one more time we're going to go around. If you have any buttercream on your board, I have a little bit, wipe it up before you do your final smooth so that you don't get anything on the side of your fondant. So one final smooth, just like that. And there you go. That is how you cover a round cake with fondant.